Imagine if I were going to tell you that the government was going to hire a bunch of people, possibly unconstitutionally, to track you down if you came in contact with someone who's got the coof. Imagine that. Imagine if I tell you that they're not really bound by the Constitution, technically, or any sort of HIPAA laws. Imagine if I told you that it's already in place and there's nothing you can do about it. Here we come to this article here. Texas signs $295 million deal with MTX Group to manage COVID-19 contact tracing buildup. So let's read the sign right here where it says, what is contact tracing? Well, let me tell you, contact tracing is a decades-old disease control method. It is used in public health to stop the spread of infectious diseases by identifying, testing, and isolating those who are sick. Read this sign further down. It says a COVID-19 contact is anyone who has had close contact 6 feet or less with a lab-confirmed COVID-19 case. Lab confirmed. While the case was infectious, the contact can be a household member, friend, coworker, shelter resident, cellmate, etc., or Tinder hookup. Now, let's go over this kind of quickly because I don't want to get too lost in the weeds. It says a 27-month contract was signed last week with MTX Group, comes as more businesses begun to open and the number of new daily COVID-19 cases in Texas continues to grow. Governor Greg Abbott has said the new outbreaks may be inevitable as restrictions loosen and has vowed to bring on at least 4,000 tracers by the end of this month to help contain them. Now, you can read the story. It's pretty easy to find on Google. But nowhere in this where you see we're going to be, using the Constitution as a guide to make sure people's rights aren't being violated. No, you will not see. Here, Control F. Let's do that. Control F. Constitution. Nope. Do you see that? No. Now imagine this. Let's just say these contact tracers go out there and hunt some people down and you don't, let's say, refuse to abide by their rules. Then the cops come in and they force you to do it because we've seen it now. The cops are not going to abide by the Constitution. No, why would they? That's what it is. And you could see where this could devolve into something crazy. I know. Well, Lazo, you're being conspiratorial here. Yeah. I'm using deductive reasoning. I'm using a thought experiment here. I'm looking out into the future because I like to look at things as how they will be, not how they are at the moment, because things change. Let's move on. Let's see, Texas is now one of the more than a dozen states to rely on contact tracing technology from MTX, an Albany-based Albany. All good things come out of New York. Firm that recently set up a second headquarters in Frisco, Texas. But it will be among the first, if not the first, states for whom the company will also hire, train, manage thousands of tracers, according to Chris Van Dusen, a spokesman for the Department of Health Services. Again, nowhere in this thing are they talking about constitutional rights. Nope. I mean, that should be a red flag. Van Dusen said the agency plans to hire up to 1,000 tracers in addition to the 2,000 state and local tracers already operating. So good luck trying to protest this, boys and girls. Several hundred state health employees have volunteered to do tracing in lieu of their regular jobs. Man, imagine a bunch of bureaucrats, unelected, out there tracking you down. Right. Because their motivation is money, not for the good of the nation. I get it. Money's money. But again, we have not heard the word Constitution and constitutional rights pop out. Let's see here. The deal appears to have been put together within just a few days. On Wednesday, MTX hired Austin-based lobbyists. There we go. Constitutional rights, hiring a bunch of bureaucrats, and here comes the lobbyists. Andrea and Dean McWilliams up to $50,000 each, according to public disclosure documents. Others who submitted bids include contracting giants Accenture and Maximus, representatives of the companies said. Oh my God. And you think MTX Group is altruistic? No. Vanguard Law Magazine called MTX Group a $10 million company. Okay. That has been self-funded to this point. Okay. In a story published last September, the firm grew from 3 employees to 200 in 2015. Vanguard also reported the company was poised to go after $1 billion in revenue by 2025. So you know they're on the rise. Let's see. Van Dusen said MTX is also expertise in Salesforce, the cloud-based software. There we go. Lobbyists, your constitutional rights going down. Software. Wonder what they would use that software for. The cloud-based software that powers a state's online tracing application called Texas Healthy Trace. Now, you know that little building out in the Utah desert where the NSA has a bunch of metadata out there? Just waiting for, dare I say, a pandemic, if you will. All that data out there on social media that you use and etc. to be used to track you down. Yeah, nothing bad can happen, far as I can see. Anyways, the state also set up a call center last month, but was using the community health hotline 211, which quickly became inundated. MTX will be in charge of building more long-term solution. The agency aims to have new call center up by next week, so all the Karens out there can be snitching on neighbors. It will be up staffed 12 hours per day, 7 days a week, according to the copy of the bid that was obtained by the Hearst newspapers. The contract is being paid with, you guessed it, federal emergency relief dollars. And I guarantee you, within that piece of legislation, you may find some language in there to state that, hey, we got all this metadata out here in the middle of the desert that's just waiting you to be used by a company that say, we'll use it for the good, not for evil. And in this article here from The Guardian, U.S. states begin to reopen amid contact tracing programs scramble. Patchwork of efforts as states left to devise their own programs and local health departments are still hiring people to test and trace contacts. So, what does that mean? Well, without really any federal guidelines from the big old government, you got 50 different states going to implement 50 different ways of doing business and tracing and tracking you down. So let's think about that for a second. Recently, if you want to go into a store or a movie theater or something like that now, they're doing, they're testing your temperature with like a laser thermometer. Now, technically, some people are saying, okay, if your temperature is 100.4 or higher, you can't come in. Well, some other states nearby are going, well, we don't like that. So if you got a 99.8, you technically have a fever and you can't come in. Now, they don't take into consideration that some people's temperatures are just naturally higher than it's not really even a standard, but was it 98.7, I think it was? That's like a normal temperature. That's just, your temperature could be lower or it could be higher, and you're just fine. But that's just how your body naturally radiates heat. So you could be thrown out of a store of an elevated temperature even though you're not sick. Imagine that. So, dare I say, the federal government needs to have some I don't know, some boilerplate guidelines, to make sure that constitutional rights aren't violated. They're not going to do that. And these contact tracers won't come into deputies of the state tracking you down, violating your rights. But hey, that's just me. There are often hundreds, even thousands of people short of targets for their so-called contact tracing. Public health experts have consistently said robust programs to test more people and trace their contacts are needed for states to safely reboot their economies and prevent a resurgence of the virus. Here it comes. Cook County, Illinois, has just 29 contact tracers serving 2.5 million people living in suburban communities around Chicago. The jail in Cook County has been an intense hotspot for the COOF. Now, think about this for a second. They got to hire more people when they're going to. Do you trust these people? What kind of mission statement are they going to sign on to? Are they going to violate your rights? Are they going to, pour through metadata to make sure that you didn't come in contact with certain people or groups of people? You don't really know that. Again, because because you can't trust the government. All right. Los Angeles County, with at more than 10 million people, has a population slightly greater than Michigan, has just 400 of the estimated 600 contact tracers it will need under California's criteria for a broader reopening. Maybe in August, maybe not. In 2.7 million residents and roughly 100 to 300 new cases a day, Miami-Dade County, Miami Beach, South Beach, etc., has 175 people tracking down people who are potentially exposed to the virus. The whole point of the lockdown was to buy time to have a better way to keep numbers down, said the guy who ran the Ebola outbreak in West Africa during the Obama administration. Public health experts say contact tracing systems should be in place before cases become widespread, so every new infection can be tracked and the person's contacts identified, tested, isolated, and put into re-education camps. Rest of the community. While other counties are taking a national approach to contact tracing, the U.S. is leaving it to the states to devise their own programs. 50 different programs for 50 different states. We probably can add into the territories in the United States too, like American Samoa, Puerto Rico, USVI, etc., etc., etc. Let's see. Contact tracing, one of the core state preparedness responsibilities outlined by the White House guidelines for reopening the country. Again, no talk about constitutional rights here because that pesky pandemic sort of like just whitewash. The First Amendment, Second, Third, Fourth, gone. Let's see. Got to talk about the Fauci. During the correctional testimony this past week, the nation's top infectious disease expert, the Fauci, reiterated his concerns that the U.S. might be easing restrictions too early without having the ability to respond effectively to increase in cases with good identification, isolation, and contact tracing. The next day, the CDC and Prevention released general guidance to states on contact tracing. Again, no talk about the constitutional rights that you have or had. It said the number of cases, investigators, and contact tracers needed in each community may be large and will vary in part due to caseloads. I think we can end it there for this day 64. Just because, again, I keep reiterating this point. Constitution, no talk of it. But hey, that's just me. And you might be saying, I'm being conspiratorial. Well, I'm looking far out into the future. Kind of a thought experiment. Because you just can't look at today and tomorrow. You need to look at out 2 weeks, 2 months, a year even. Because you never know. Because they could just gloss over the Constitution like it doesn't even matter. And governments in the world, and the U.S. is no different. They're all always onto that. Oh, well, this whole thing is it's an emergency. We have to change the way we do things. And all your rights, don't worry about them. How about I worry about them because they're important?